So, welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Sandford. I am a developer engagement lead for Microsoft, and I have with me today Prottay Karim, who is going to teach us an introduction to GitHub. Prottay, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and take it away?
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Students Accelerator 2022. This is our second technical workshop this year on getting started with GitHub and intro to GitHub and VS Code. We have some great content here for you today. I'm Prottay Karim. I'll be taking today's workshop. I am an Alpha Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador doing my bachelor's in information technology at RMIT University. I'm majoring in data science and doing my minor in economics and finance. I'm also a CS peer mentor at the university and the tech expert at the GDSC RMIT Club. My socials are on the top right corner, so feel free to connect with me and reach out. So today's agenda looks something like this. We'll see how to download VS Code, know more about VS Code, and integrate GitHub into it. Finally, we'll upload a very basic website to GitHub pages with the help of VS Code and GitHub. Before wrapping up the event, we'll have a Q&A session for our live audience. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always reach out to me and I'll be glad to answer your questions. So to download VS Code, we head on over to code.visualstudio.com/download and select the appropriate installer. Once it's downloaded, follow the next buttons and hit finish. It's as easy as downloading an app on your mobile devices. Visual Studio Code is a free and open source program for editing code. Software is just a collection of text files organized in a precise way. VS Code provides an integrated development environment to help edit, analyze, and manage these files efficiently. It's a Microsoft project that first appeared in 2015 as a lightweight cross-platform code editor that ships a new update every single month. Today is the world's most popular code editor. My VS Code looks something like this. If you want to change how your VS Code looks, open up settings from the bottom left corner and you can see color themes and choose any of the pre-installed color themes that VS Code already has. Or we will see how to use more themes via the extension installer in VS Code. The best feature on VS Code, in my opinion, is Intellisense, which is a general term for various code editing features, including code completion, parameter info, quick info, and member list. Intelligence features are sometimes called by other names such as code completion, content assist, and code hinting. You'll notice the file explorer here contains all the files in the directory. Open a file like I have opened hybrid.js and notice how the text inside is colored. That's because VS Code analyzes the symbols inside the file to perform syntax highlighting. It will automatically detect problems in your code. For example, if I remove this 44 from here, a red squiggly line appears in your code. So to show you that it will not compile. All this will make your life really easy as a developer. Next, we have the debug code, which you can do right from the editor here. So once you do run and debug, let's do this. Launch or attach to your running apps and debug with breakpoints, call stacks, and an interactive console. To add breakpoints, you can just click here or here, and this red lines appear so you can debug your code at any time. Let's move back to our hybrid.js. And also, if you want more features on VS Code, install extensions to add new languages, themes, debuggers, and to connect to additional services. Extensions in VS Code run in separate processes, ensuring that they won't slow down your code editor. So this is the extensions panel where you can find different languages. So let's say I search for Python And once it's downloading, so there are all these Python extensions that you can download. I have only been using the Python Intellisense Pylons extension. Also, you can search for JS and you will have all these. If you want more themes, you can just type in themes and you will have several hundred themes right here. You can click on it to view what the themes look like. And that's about it for the extensions panel. With Microsoft Azure, you can deploy and host your React, Angular, Vue, Node, Python, and many more sites. Store and query relational and document-based data, and scale with serverless computing, all with ease, all from within VS Code. Also, a point to mention here is that VS Code, as you can see here, has an online version as well, where you can type in vscode.dev and you can use VS Code right here from your web browser. You can create new files, select a language, and many more. So that's it to create a Python file. And let's move on to Git. Working with Git and other SCM providers has never been easier. Review diffs, stage files, and make commits right from the editor. Push and pull from GitHub with ease. So I know I've used a lot of jargons here, but these are all GitHub commands that you will be familiarized with once we move on. So let's move on to integrating VS Code and GitHub. Before we do remember to check out my friend Clarice's workshop on beautifying your GitHub profile on YouTube. The link is on the screen. So we now know what VS Code is. Now let's start to pair up GitHub and VS Code. Before moving on, let's talk a bit more about GitHub. At a high level, GitHub is a website and a cloud-based service that helps developers store and manage their code, as well as track and control changes to their code. You can create a repository to store your project files, fork a repo to create a new project based off of another project, make pull requests if you make revisions to someone else's code. You can do social networking and view change logs when multiple people are contributing to your project. Before you get started with GitHub, you need to have Git on your system. This will allow you to use Git controls from your terminal in VS Code. For Windows, just head on over to gitforwindows.org and click download. Follow the next button and hit finish. For Macs, open up your terminal and type in git version right there on the screen. And then you hit return. If it's already installed, you will see this, the git version and the version number. Or if it's not installed on your computer, it will show you prompts to install Git on your Mac. Finally, once it's all done, open up your terminal and configure your username and email. This is required for the next steps of this workshop. These commands are quite simple. It's right there on the screen. Remember to use your GitHub username and the email you use to sign up to GitHub. Once this is done, your system is all set up for using Git. In step 2, and I promise this is the last installation, we'll install a small extension to our VS Code called GitHub pull requests and issues. Let's see how it's done. So move on to extensions. And once you have extensions, just type in GitHub. Once you do, this is the very first extension. It says GitHub pull request and issues. You will just install this. I have already set it up on my VS Code for today's workshop. So at this point, you might feel overwhelmed with all the installations I have been asking you to do. But I assure you, once all these installations are done, you will be all set to perform all sorts of Git operations on VS Code and never have to think about these installations again. On your bottom left corner of VS Code, there is a user icon. click on it and sign in using your GitHub profile. A few authentication prompts will pop up to verify your profile. Once it's done, you can actually see that it changes to something like this, where it says you're already signed in. This is where we start to build our very first GitHub website. At first, we create a new repository. So let's go on to GitHub and hit new. So to create this repository, remember to set the name as shown on the screen with username.github.io, where the username is your GitHub username, and set the repo as public. So my username is Prottay is live, and we say .github.io. This is actually going to be the URL of your website. For the description, let's say this is my first MSA workshop. We have set it to public. Remember to add a README file. Just like here, you can see to add the README. And after you've done that, just hit create repository. And this is your repository. Now we'll click the code button and copy the repository URL. And with that, we move on to our very final step. So the first command that you see here is git clone. Git clone is a command that allows you to create a clone or a copy of the repository on your system. So let's do that. So we say git clone and paste the URL that we copied earlier. Once that's done, you can see that the repository is copied on my computer and the README file that we created with the description that we gave. This is my first MSA workshop. Now, before we start working with the repo, we need to actually go into this file. To do so, we use the cd command to change our directory. So let's do that. We say cd, meaning change directory, to the username was Prottay is live.github.io. And you can see that we have changed the directory from Microsoft Accelerator to Prottay is live.github.io. Once that's done, we can go ahead and create our first index.html file for the website. Here, let's create an h1 tag. We can see Intellisense in action here. So there we go. And let's say hello MSA 2022. Go ahead and save this file. The next command that you can see is git add. So the git add command adds a change in the working directory to the staging area. It tells Git that you want to include updates to a particular file in the next commit. We use the word all because we want to include all the files in this directory. So let's go ahead and say git add all. Once we do so, you can see that one file was added to the staging area. And next we have git commit. The git commit command captures a snapshot of the project's current stage changes, the changes that we staged by using the add command. Committed snapshots can be thought of as a saved version of a project. Git will never change them unless you explicitly ask it to. When we make commands, we also write a small comment or a message about the commit. That is usually the best practice that all developers follow. In this case, we'll use initial commit as the message. So let's go ahead and say git commit message is initial commit, and let's hit enter. So we can see that one file has been changed and one insertion. After that's done, the final command that you can see on the slide is git push. The git push command is used to upload local repository content, in this case, the index file that we just created, to a remote repository, in this case, GitHub. So just to recap, we did git commit to save a snapshot of our current project, and we're doing git push to upload this entire thing into our GitHub repository. So let's see. Once we're done with that, let's do git push u with origin main basically means that we are pushing it to our main branch. And let's hit enter, and you can see that it's done. Now let's head on over to our GitHub and reload this repository. Here you can see the index.html file is already here, just the way we wanted it to. And finally, let's go on to, and there you go, your very first website hosted on GitHub. So once you're done with this, you can actually move on to make beautiful websites like this website right here. He is using the github.io website as well. This has a lot of frameworks and a lot of languages in here, but basically once you're a bit more comfy with web dev, you can actually create this website or even more advanced ones in the future. But today's workshop sets up a very good foundation for you to move on to create great websites on GitHub. And that's a wrap. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and I would be happy to answer them. If you're watching this online, we really appreciate it. And if you think you have questions or facing troubles in any of the steps, you can always reach out to me via my socials.